Have you noticed that someone has been on your mind lately? Not casually, not randomly, but persistently? Their name rises without warning. Their face appears in quiet moments. You try to focus on something else, but your thoughts circle back to them again and again. You may have brushed it off as coincidence. You may have assumed it was nostalgia, worry, or unfinished emotion. But what if it is none of those? What if the reason you cannot stop thinking about this person is not coming from you at all? Right now, before you go any further, I want you to hold that person clearly in your mind. The one you were just thinking about. The one whose absence feels louder than it should. The one whose situation you cannot quite shake. Because this message is not general, it is not vague. It is not for everyone in the same way. It is specific. And if you leave before hearing it fully, you may miss the very words that were meant to pass through you to them. There are moments when heaven moves quietly. No thunder, no spectacle. Just a gentle but persistent impression placed on the heart. You may not feel qualified. You may not feel ready. You may even feel hesitant. But the fact that this person is on your mind is not accidental. Sometimes the greatest assignments are disguised as simple thoughts. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will challenge the way you interpret your own emotions. You will understand why the timing matters. You will see why delay could mean silence where there was meant to be connection. And by the end of this message, you will know whether you are meant to pray, to speak, to reach out, or simply to release. This is not about control. It is not about forcing reconciliation. It is not about assuming responsibility for someone else's journey. It is about discernment, about recognizing when a nudge is more than memory, about understanding that sometimes you are reminded of someone because they are standing at a crossroads you cannot see. Watch carefully, listen closely, because what you do after hearing this will determine whether this moment becomes another passing thought or a divine interruption you chose to honor. There is a difference between remembering someone and being reminded of them. Memory drifts in and out without weight. It carries a softness, a neutrality. But when a person's presence presses repeatedly against your thoughts, when their name surfaces at unexpected hours, when you feel a subtle pull that does not fade with distraction, that is something different. Persistence carries purpose. You may have tried to rationalize it. Perhaps you told yourself it is simply habit. Perhaps you assumed it is because of shared history or unresolved emotion, but persistence has a distinct quality. It interrupts your routine thinking. It appears during prayer, during silence, even in moments when you are fully engaged elsewhere. It feels placed rather than produced. There are times when awareness is assigned, not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily. The human mind is constantly processing countless impressions, yet this one person rises above the noise. You did not plan to think about them. You were not triggered by a recent conversation or social media reminder, and yet they are there, consistent, repeated, gentle, but insistent. Consider how rare that is. How many people have crossed your path in life? How many names could surface at any moment? Yet it is this one, and it is not fleeting. The thought returns. That return is the clue. Random thoughts scatter. Purposeful impressions repeat. Persistence often carries compassion within it. When someone is placed on your heart in a sustained way, it is rarely for curiosity. It is often connected to care. You may sense concern without knowing details. You may feel drawn without understanding why. That subtle concern is not always emotional dependency. Sometimes it is awareness being extended to you because you are positioned to respond. You might feel resistance. Questions arise. Why me? Why now? What could I possibly do? But persistence is not always about immediate action. Sometimes it is about attention. Attention itself is powerful. When you hold someone intentionally in your awareness, something shifts internally. You become sensitive to their needs in ways you were not before. It is important to notice the tone of the thought. Does it feel anxious or steady? Does it produce panic or peace? Persistent thoughts rooted in fear often escalate into urgency and dread. But when a name rests on your heart with a calm gravity, that is different. It does not scream. It stays. It waits for you to acknowledge it rather than dismiss it. There are moments in life when people go through silent battles. They do not announce their struggle. They do not broadcast their confusion. Yet they are at a threshold, and sometimes someone else is quietly alerted, not with information, but with awareness. The awareness itself becomes the invitation. You may not yet know the reason. You may not understand the full picture. But persistence is rarely accidental. It is deliberate in its repetition. It respects your free will, but it does not easily withdraw. The more you try to ignore it, the more it returns, gently asking you to pause and consider. Instead of dismissing the thought as coincidence, sit with it. Observe its consistency. Ask yourself when it began. Notice whether it aligns with a specific season or moment. Persistence often connects to timing. The repetition may be happening now because something is unfolding now. When someone continues to appear in your mind without force, without obsession, without manipulation, it is worth honoring that presence, not rushing to conclusions, not assuming responsibility beyond what is yours, simply recognizing that persistence has meaning and meaning invites response. Not every strong emotion is a spiritual prompting, and not every spiritual prompting feels emotional. This is where discernment becomes essential. When someone is on your mind persistently, the first question is not what should I do, but what is the source of this thought? Is it rooted in longing, regret, unresolved attachment, or is it steady, clear, and strangely peaceful despite the uncertainty? Emotional attachment tends to carry urgency. It wants relief. It seeks closure. It pushes toward action that satisfies your own discomfort. You may feel restless, replaying past conversations, imagining outcomes, constructing scenarios in your mind. The focus centers on how you feel, what you miss, what you wish had been different, what you hope could still happen. There is a tightening in the chest, a desire to control the narrative. Spiritual prompting, by contrast, often carries weight without panic. It does not demand immediate gratification. It does not revolve around your need to feel better. Instead, it quietly shifts your focus toward the other person. You begin to sense concern rather than craving, compassion rather than control. The thought may come with a gentle question, are they okay? Rather than, why aren't they here? Discernment requires honesty. You must be willing to examine your motives without defensiveness. Are you being drawn to reach out because you fear losing relevance in their life? Or because you sense they may need encouragement? Are you seeking validation, or are you responding to awareness? The difference may appear subtle, but internally it feels distinct. Emotional attachment often amplifies imagination. It creates elaborate stories with little evidence. It swings between hope and despair. One moment you are convinced something significant must happen. The next you feel rejected before anything has occurred. This fluctuation reveals instability. Spiritual prompting rarely swings wildly. It remains consistent, calm, clear in its presence, even if unclear in its purpose. There is also the matter of timing. Emotional impulses resist waiting. They pressure you to act immediately to relieve discomfort. Spiritual nudges, however, can sit patiently. They invite prayer, reflection, and measured response. If you delay for a moment of clarity, the prompting does not disappear in frustration. It stays steady, allowing space for wisdom. Pay attention to the fruit of the thought. Does it produce anxiety or peace? Does it narrow your perspective or widen your compassion? Emotional attachment can consume your mental space, making it difficult to focus on anything else. A genuine prompting, while persistent, does not suffocate your life. It integrates into it, resting in the background with quiet significance. Sometimes the confusion arises because both elements are present. You may have history with this person, you may carry emotion, yet within that emotion, there may also be a deeper nudge. Discernment does not demand perfection. It requires willingness to separate your need from your calling in this moment. One helpful measure is this. If you removed your own desires from the equation, would the prompting still remain? If there were no possibility of personal gain, reconciliation, or recognition, would you still feel compelled to care? If the answer is yes, the source may be purer than you realized. Discernment is not about suppressing emotion. It is about filtering it, allowing truth to rise above longing, allowing clarity to settle beneath memory. When you pause long enough to ask, is this about me or is this about them? You create room for insight. And in that space of honest reflection, the difference between attachment and assignment begins to reveal itself. Before you speak, before you text, before you attempt to solve or fix or clarify, there is a quieter responsibility that often comes first: intercession. It is the hidden work that requires no audience, no acknowledgement, no visible response. When someone is placed on your heart persistently, your first instinct may be to reach outward, but sometimes the deeper assignment is to kneel inward. Intercession shifts the focus from your words to divine movement. It acknowledges that you do not see the full picture. You do not know the private struggles, the silent fears, the decisions forming behind closed doors. Prayer steps into the spaces you cannot access. It respects boundaries while still engaging spiritually. It says, "I may not understand what is happening, but I am willing to stand in the gap." There is humility in praying before acting. It prevents you from assuming you are the solution. It guards against the subtle pride of believing your intervention alone will change the outcome. Intercession recognizes that transformation does not originate from human persuasion, but from deeper influence. When you pray first, your heart aligns before your hands move. Often, the urge to intervene comes from discomfort. You sense something is off, and you want resolution quickly. But prayer slows that impulse. It invites patience. It allows clarity to develop. Sometimes after sincere intercession, the urgency to reach out softens, not because the person no longer matters, but because your role becomes clearer. You realize your assignment may be spiritual support rather than direct involvement. Intercession also refines motive. When you pray for someone privately, without their knowledge, you remove the possibility of recognition. There is no gratitude, no validation, no visible proof that you have done anything. It becomes an act of pure intention. You are not praying to be seen as caring. You are praying because you care. In prayer, insight can surface. You may gain understanding about how to approach them, or whether to approach them at all. Words may form gently in your mind. A sense of timing may develop, or you may simply feel peace that they are being held in a way you cannot physically hold them. That peace matters. There are moments when direct intervention would disrupt rather than help. Not every situation requires your voice. Some require your covering. When you intercede first, you create space for wisdom to determine the next step. You prevent reactive communication driven by incomplete information. Intercession is also an act of trust. It acknowledges that you are not the orchestrator of outcomes. You are a participant, not the architect. You offer concern upward before expressing it outward. This posture protects relationships from unnecessary pressure. It allows conversations, if they happen, to be grounded rather than frantic. Sometimes prayer reveals that the persistent thought was never about action toward them, but growth within you. As you pray, unresolved emotions surface. Forgiveness may be needed. Release may be necessary. Intercession becomes healing for your own heart as much as support for theirs. And sometimes, after days of quiet prayer, an unexpected opportunity arises. A natural conversation, a timely encounter, a message from them instead of you. When action follows intercession, it carries confirmation. It feels aligned rather than forced. Standing in prayer before stepping into conversation transforms your posture. You are no longer reacting to emotion. You are responding with discernment. You are no longer trying to control an outcome. You are participating in something larger than your immediate understanding. Timing is often the most overlooked element in matters of the heart and spirit. We see someone in need, we feel the pull to reach out, and yet we hesitate thinking there will be another moment, another opportunity, another day. But the truth is that timing is rarely accidental. God works in seasons, and the persistent presence of someone in your thoughts may indicate that this is their moment, their intersection of readiness, vulnerability, and opportunity. Missing the timing may not destroy them or you, but it may delay the blessing, the clarity, or the intervention meant to occur at that precise juncture. There is a divine rhythm to relationships, conversations, and interventions. Some moments are orchestrated not by your agenda, but by circumstances beyond your awareness. The timing of a nudge, a message, or even a thought may coincide with the exact season in which the other person is able to receive insight, encouragement, or correction. Acting too early, too late, or without discernment can blunt the impact of what was intended to align perfectly. The challenge of timing lies in its subtlety. You may feel urgency as if every second counts, yet the outward appearance of normalcy in the other person's life can create doubt. You may question whether your thoughts are merely coincidental or if you are imagining significance. That uncertainty is part of the test. Waiting is not passive. It is an act of attentiveness, a recognition that the right moment carries more weight than hasty action. Timing also intersects with readiness. The person you are thinking about may be at a crossroads emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. They may be wrestling with choices, dealing with past hurts, or seeking guidance without realizing it. If you were to intervene without discernment, your words or actions could be misinterpreted, ignored, or even rejected. But when the timing aligns, your input is received with openness, clarity, and impact. That is why patience combined with awareness is so powerful. There is a paradox in timing. Waiting does not mean inaction. While you wait, preparation occurs, internally for you and spiritually for them. During this period, intercession, reflection, and personal alignment strengthen your ability to engage effectively. You cultivate wisdom about the words to speak, the tone to use, and the boundaries to maintain. You learn to distinguish between impulses driven by fear, longing, or pressure, and those guided by insight, compassion, and discernment. The concept of timing also demands humility. You are not in control of the other person's season. Their readiness, perspective, and perception are influenced by factors you may not see. Recognizing this requires letting go of the desire to orchestrate outcomes and embracing the responsibility of stewardship rather than control. It is a balance between being present and responsive, yet patient and respectful of their journey. Acting at the right time increases the probability of alignment. Words spoken, encouragement given, or support offered at the precise moment can have lasting effects. Conversely, actions taken too early may be disregarded, misinterpreted, or even resisted. Timing ensures that your effort carries resonance rather than friction. Recognizing timing requires sensitivity. It often manifests as repeated nudges that align with observable readiness in the other person. It may feel like a calm insistence in your heart, an internal confirmation, or a sudden clarity about when to reach out. That feeling is subtle, yet it carries authority. It is different from impulsive emotion. It is measured, steady, and persistent. By observing timing, you protect both yourself and the other person. You avoid missteps that can create tension or misunderstanding. You create space for authentic connection that honors boundaries and context, and you align your actions with the natural rhythm of their season, increasing the chance that your words and presence will be meaningful rather than disruptive. Timing is not merely a logistical concern. It is a spiritual principle. It ensures that opportunity meets readiness, that guidance meets receptivity, and that influence is both respectful and effective. When acted upon wisely, it transforms a simple thought into a divine encounter, a whispered message into lasting insight, and a moment of awareness into meaningful impact. Immediate action is the culmination of awareness, discernment, intercession, and timing. It is the point where thought translates into responsibility. When someone has been placed persistently on your mind, and you have discerned the prompting as spiritual rather than emotional, and you have interceded and recognized the timing, the next step is action. Immediate action is not impulsive, it is intentional, informed, and guided by the alignment you have cultivated through reflection and prayer. There is power in responding without delay. When you act immediately after discernment, you prevent opportunities from slipping through your hands unnoticed. The window in which impact can occur may be narrow. Hesitation, even motivated by caution, can inadvertently allow circumstances to shift in ways that reduce effectiveness. Immediate action ensures that the guidance you have received is honored while the moment is still relevant. Action also carries authority. When you move in alignment with spiritual prompting, your words and gestures are infused with intention. They are no longer just opinions, advice, or casual outreach. They become a conduit for clarity, encouragement, and insight that might otherwise be delayed. The timing of your action amplifies its effect because it meets the other person at a moment of receptivity that has been prepared by divine orchestration. Immediate action requires courage. It may involve initiating a difficult conversation, extending forgiveness, expressing encouragement, or setting a boundary that you have avoided. It may feel uncomfortable because it exposes vulnerability, requires humility, or challenges pride. Yet courage does not mean absence of fear. Courage is the willingness to act in alignment with discernment despite uncertainty or discomfort. There is also responsibility embedded in immediate action. You are acting not solely for your own sake, but in acknowledgement of the larger context of the other person's life, the spiritual nudges involved, and the potential consequences of inaction. To act immediately is to honor both your awareness and the trust placed in you by the subtle prompting you have received. It is a recognition that awareness without action is incomplete. Action can take many forms, and it does not always require verbal expression. Sometimes action is as simple as sending a message of encouragement, offering support, or creating space for the person to feel acknowledged. Other times it may involve a more direct approach, such as speaking truth gently, setting up a conversation, or sharing insight that they may not have been able to access on their own. The key is that the response is guided by the discernment you have cultivated and the timing you have observed. Immediate action also fosters faith. When you respond promptly to what you sense is a spiritual nudge, you reinforce trust in the guidance you receive. You strengthen the connection between awareness and obedience. Over time, this cultivates sensitivity to future nudges and an increased capacity to distinguish between emotion, impulse, and divine prompting. Acting immediately is an exercise in faith because it requires trusting that your discernment is correct and that your actions will contribute positively to the other person's journey. Finally, immediate action protects against regret. Delay often introduces doubt, overthinking, or second-guessing. The longer you wait, the more likely you are to allow fear, pride, or distraction to intervene. Acting promptly ensures that the prompting you received is translated into tangible impact while the opportunity remains viable. By responding with immediacy, you honor the persistence that brought this person to your mind, the discernment that clarified your role, the intercession that prepared your heart, and the timing that maximized receptivity, creating a moment where your engagement is both meaningful and aligned.